Hi, this is Alan Perkins from Perkins Digest. Welcome to the Perkins Podcast. This is going to be part 2 of the Texas Longhorns versus the Baylor Bears recap from this past weekend. So, starting off with a couple things that I noticed from the game, Texas won 35-34 in a thrilling, wild game. Explosive plays. Baylor had 14 rushing plays of 10 yards or more and 6 passing plays of 15 yards or more, and Texas had 8 rushes of 10 yards or more and 6 passes of 15 yards or more. So Baylor won the explosive plays 20-14, and which is not surprising considering how much they ran the ball successfully. On third down, Texas was 7 of 17 and Baylor was 10 of 20. Seth Russell had 138 yards, the Baylor quarterback, 138 yards on 21 carries with a long of 50 and a hurdle over Dylan Haynes' head, which was not good, obviously. Baylor had 398 rushing yards and Texas had 257 rushing yards. And as I've said before, I'm not going to include every single stat from the box score in this, but just a couple things that stood out or things that weren't even in the box score that I just broke down on my own. Baylor had 31 first downs, Texas had 19. Baylor had 624 yards of total offense, Texas had 548. Baylor had 5.9 yards per rush, and Texas had 5 yards per rush. So in general, on the first 2 drives, Texas did whatever they wanted. The UTO line was blocking great, Bouchel was perfect, and Deontay Foreman had some good runs. So that was the best that I've seen the O-line look against Big 12 competition. The defense looked very poor to start off. Seth Russell had a huge run, and Baylor was running tempo, and they got a wide receiver matched up against a linebacker because of their formations and their up tempos, and they also ran a trick play where they had a eligible receiver that was lined up along the offensive line, and they had tricked Texas as far as their alignment, so they got an easy little play off of that right down the middle. Texas tried to play swoops in this game at running back a little bit to give Deontay Foreman a break, is I guess the only thing I could think of, but Kyle Porter, I would imagine, would be a better option there, or a little Jordan Humphrey, but Texas let to go with swoops and it didn't work, so hopefully they don't go back to that, because it definitely did not work. I did like that Texas had the pitch play to Foreman from the shotgun, like a little toss, and they also had a pass to Andrew Beck in the fourth quarter in the flat, the tight end, and Texas got a touchdown off of that. So that was a huge play because that was 3rd and 4 when Texas was behind, and that got them within one possession in the fourth quarter. So that pass to Beck was definitely my favorite because Texas has not used the tight end at all this year. So fans are looking for a play action off the zone read, and then just a seam route to the tight end also, because Texas never does it. So hopefully they'll do it more than 3 times as they've done so far this year. Texas dominated the time of possession in the first quarter, but by halftime Baylor had caught up, and and at the same time Baylor caught up by halftime as far as third down conversions. Texas was leading that to begin the game too. Before 6 minutes had passed, the score was already 14-14, but then the game got to slow down and went to more of a normal pace. Chris Boyd made a huge play where he deflected a pass up into the air, and P.J. Locke was able to come up with an interception, and I think that was a huge confidence booster for the defense. So that was a huge play, and that was on, I believe, Baylor's second drive in the first quarter, and then Texas was able to score a touchdown on the very next play off of that. So Baylor scored 21 points in the first half, and it was kind of surprising but not surprising. Baylor ran the ball really well later in the game and threw the ball really well early in the game. And so statistically, considering how many yards they racked up, it wasn't shocking that they did that, but Texas was able to get turnovers, sacks, tackle for loss in the first half, so they were disrupting Baylor, but not consistently enough to where it made a big difference. And Seth Russell, who runs a 4.5 in the 40, was able to run all over Texas Typically on design running plays is usually where he did most of his damage with his feet. One thing that I did notice was that on the last drive before halftime, Baylor was running out of time, and they were at the Texas 18, and Baylor called a running play even though they had no timeouts, and Baylor got tackled inbounds, and the clock was running in under 20 seconds. And just as Baylor was about to snap the ball, Charlie Strong called a timeout. In my mind, it was a mistake. I'm guessing that Strong was thinking that his players were tired, which they were, noticeably, and/or he just wanted to get his defense set up because both the offense and the defense were kind of scrambling because it was just a wild last-minute drive by Baylor before the half. But I think in the end it was the wrong decision because it allowed Baylor to get organized, and Baylor threw a TD pass to KD Cannon in the end zone just before the half on kind of a fade jump ball route kind of throw over Holton Hill, and Baylor just looked very relaxed and controlled and comfortable on that play, whereas just before that they were kind of, it seemed at least, scrambling as they had no timeouts, and they inexplicably called a running play with the clock running and no timeouts just before the half. So that was a huge moment in the game and a mistake by Charlie Strong, in my opinion. So at halftime, Texas led 23-21. In the second half, Baylor ran the ball on every single play to start the second half, and they went up 28-26. And there was another point in the game that I thought was interesting, where the ABC commentators said that Baylor always, or at very least usually, it was either always or usually, I think they said always, predetermines which side of the field they'll go. Baylor will go before the snap. They already decide, hey, we're going to the right or the left. Not every single time, but a lot of the time. And so anytime they're making that decision, the receivers on one side of the field will just basically take a break and not do anything so that they can rest. But I had never heard that before about Baylor's offense, so I didn't know if anybody else had ever heard that, but I thought that was an interesting point. Later in the third quarter, Dylan Haynes made a huge play to side over to cover KD Cannon, and he was able to deflect the ball just before it got to KD Cannon, where Cannon would have otherwise easily scored a touchdown if he would have been able to make the catch because there was nobody else there. So that was a big play by Haynes, and probably the best play that I've seen him made as far as just breaking on a ball. That was a big play. Baylor led 28-26 midway through the third quarter, and then Baylor marched right down the field again and got into a goal-to-go situation. But Malik Jefferson got pressure and forced Russell to throw it away, leading to an intentional grounding. And so that was a huge play. And then Texas stuffed 2 Baylor runs, leading to a Baylor field goal. And this was a huge turning point as far as momentum of the game because the momentum was trending Baylor's way, and it felt like Texas was just scratching and clawing to stay within striking distance. And instead of a touchdown, Baylor kicked a field goal, and they instead only led by 5. When if they would have gotten a touchdown, then that would have put them up by 8. So that was pretty big. Texas punched back in this game, which I thought. To me, that's really going to be the key to the whole season, and really anytime you play in Big 12 competition, teams are going to score, and things aren't always going to look good, but the mark between an average team and a good team, or a good team and a great team, is when something goes wrong, when you get behind, or when you get beat, or when the other team makes a play, because they're getting scholarships too, when they do something good, that you don't just let it snowball, which Texas, especially on defense, has let happen this year. Buechele took a huge shot to the head on a sack late in the third quarter and then nearly threw an interception on the next play, so it looked to me like he was definitely shaken up by that hard hit, but he stayed in the game and didn't seem to have any problems for that point on. Baylor's ground game and up-tempo started wearing on UT in the second half, and Baylor started to rack up big yards in the second half for sure. Russell had plenty of success, and really his legs hurt UT just as much as his arm. And Russell just seemed to come up with a lot of big plays when Baylor needed it, except at the very end. Shock Linwood and Terrence Williams did some damage too in the game. Terrence Williams had 180 yards rushing. Late in the game, Baylor had the ball inside the UT 10, and Paul Boyette was able to make the strip on Baylor's third-string running back, Hasty, and I still haven't been able to figure out why Shock Linwood wasn't in the game. I know Terrence Williams was a little bit banged up and tired, but Linwood didn't get practically any playing time in the second half. But anyways, that was a huge strip by Paul Boyette, and Baylor could have distanced themselves by 2 possessions, but UT recovered the fumble. Then in the fourth quarter, Deontay Foreman had a huge gain for 32 yards up the right sideline, but he got hurt while being tackled, and at that point, he had 25 carries for 215 yards, and then he was for 8.6 yards per carry, and then he was out for a little bit after that, and he finished with 250 yards, so just imagine what he could have done if he didn't even get injured. Sterling Gilbert, in my estimation, made one of his worst decisions of the year. Later on in that drive, he called a zone read to Swoops on 3rd and 5 in the fourth quarter, and Stoops got stuffed and right at the line of scrimmage. But Foreman was out, and Gilbert and the coaching staff had elected to go with Swoops as the backup running back for whatever reason, but it didn't work at all in this game, nor do I expect it to work at all in the future, because Swoops can be physical and knock guys over, but he's not a running back, and he usually needs to get a lot of forward momentum behind him before he's able to plow guys over. He doesn't always knock guys back. Texas's offense only got 3 points in the third quarter. Their drives went for 3 plays, 0 yards, 7 plays, and 67 yards, and they got a field goal, and then 3 plays and 5 yards. Meanwhile, in the third quarter, Baylor had 10 plays, 78-yard drive for a touchdown, and 13 plays, 71 yards for a field goal. And in this game, to this point, Strong was 0-16 when trailing after the third quarter, which he was going into the fourth quarter, but Texas won, so now he's 1-16 when trailing after the third quarter, which is not a terribly positive stat for Texas fans, or Strong. Midway through the fourth, Bouchel hit Lorenzo Joe on a slant against a blitz for a huge gain at a critical time in the game. I believe it was the third down play. It was like 3rd and medium, and the play went for 61 yards, and Texas would eventually score a touchdown on the throw to Andrew Beck. That would cut the Baylor lead to 34-32. And when UT scored that touchdown on the touchdown pass to Andrew Beck in the fourth quarter, UT was able to break Baylor's streak of not allowing any fourth quarter points this season when they got a touchdown from Andrew Beck. Swoops got stuffed on the 2-point conversion just at the goal line, so Texas was still down 2. And Texas was able to stop Baylor on the ensuing drive. When Baylor got to about midfield, Texas got a sack and then a tackle for loss, and then on 3rd and 18, Baylor elected to pass. After running it and getting stuffed on second down, they elected to pass, but UT blitzed, and they were able to force Russell to overthrow on the deep ball. So after that, UT got the ball, and they hit a deep ball to Monte Foreman, who adjusted beautifully to the ball, and Texas was able to get a few more yards after that, and they lined it up for Trent Domain on the right side of the hash mark, where he apparently likes it based on the run design by Swoops on the play before. And with just about a minute left, kicked the field goal that put Texas up 35-34, and then Baylor wasn't even able to sniff midfield, and Texas was able to come away with the victory. So it was a big win for the Longhorns. Time will tell if it was, again, a turning point game or if it was a game that will mean something. I think Charlie Strong has a chance to keep his job if he can win out, and some reports even suggest that if he goes 8-4, he seems to be in really good shape based on all the reports from the tower. And if he goes 7-5, some people are saying that might be good enough depending on how they win and how they lose. If they lose another game, just what the eye test says, not just the record. So every game is important, every game is vital, and it'll be really fascinating to see what goes on. So anyways, thanks for listening to the Perkins Podcast. This is Alan Perkins from Horns Digest. Feel free to check out Horns Digest and get all the insider information from Chip Brown, who's been covering Texas athletics for 25 years. And I'm Alan Perkins. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great weekend. Hook 'em Horns.